Hello and welcome to Bottling Kombucha. You've boiled and brewed your tea, you've fermented it for a period of time until it's at a acidity and sweetness that you enjoy, and now it's time to bottle it. First, a word on bottles. Beer bottles work great. They're cheap, they're readily available. Flip-top bottles are also excellent, reusable many times. You can get these at any knick-knack store, and they are completely useless. They don't really form a good seal to trap in carbonation, and they basically are just for decoration. Some other things you may need is a capper and caps if you're using ordinary beer bottles. I use a ladle. Sometimes if I'm using a larger batch, I will use a cane and siphon to bottle quickly. You'll need mesh strainers. I prefer a small one for the bottling process. I use a larger one for the steeping the tea process. A funnel is very handy. You'll need a Sharpie for labeling, because keeping track of dates and stuff is quite important. I have some freshly picked mint that I picked a little bit ago, some previously frozen blueberries, and some matchsticks of ginger. And here I have the ready steeped, I have the SCOBY in there and the tea is ready. So I want to start adding some flavorings to the bottles. Mint is great to prevent body odor. It's also a great flavor. It's available year-round. Ginger is great, good for stomach, for flavor. My favorite flavor combination is ginger and mint. And the blueberries is an experiment. I have not done blueberries before, so we'll see what happens. You want to keep clean, keep your utensils clean, keep your hands clean, etc. You don't have to be like cheese making sterile, but just generally clean. You don't want any residual soap left over from the washing of the bottles or your utensils or anything, because soap can be antibacterial and you want to be probacterial. I usually add the flavorings during the bottling process so that it doesn't harm the SCOBY culture in any way. Certain things like ginger, for example, can be antibacterial. So this way it doesn't hurt the mother culture at all. I've also noticed that sometimes the top of the tank can be more acidic than the bottom, so I usually give it a good stir afterwards. There's a lot of floaty chunks in there sometimes, so that's why I usually strain it when I bottle it. You kind of know when it's ready to bottle by tasting it. I don't really have a set, this many days or that many days, because sometimes it varies on different variables like what temperature it is, etc. I don't really strictly control my temperature in here. It just kind of depends on what the weather is. I'm not going to use 100% of the liquid. I'm going to leave about 15-20% in there so the acidity helps get the next batch started off safely, making sure that the good bacteria and yeasts win. I usually do a few plain ones every batch, just kind of see how it's tasting without any variables in it. This tea I'm using now is just a jasmine green tea. You can use black tea, you can use oolong tea, you can use organic sugar, you can use brown sugar if you want kind of a darker flavor. I usually just buy whatever tea is cheap in bulk. Okay, so I left about a good couple inches worth of liquid in there with it to help get the next batch started. Over here I have a batch I brewed earlier today with about a gallon of water, 1 1/3 cups of sugar. I'm right, it's a 1/3 cup per quart. Is that right? Yes. And I boiled it for a few minutes to get any of the chlorines off, make sure my pot's clean, free of any soap residues. Added the tea after it cooled a little bit, and I let it cool down all the way to room temperature so that the temperature doesn't kill any of the yeast or bacteria. Just going to add this to my culture. Get it covered with something. If I had a paper towel would fit over this, I would use it. Sometimes in a gallon jar, I'll use a rubber band with just a paper towel. This is just an apron so that the culture can breathe. And then I'm going to store that somewhere out of sunlight so it'll be nice and happy. So the flip top bottles are easy to seal. For the beer bottles, I'll want to cap them like so. You can get cappers and caps at any local homebrew store. They're fairly cheap. Or the flip-top bottles you can reuse an infinite number of times. Then I date them so I know about how long it's been, kind of get an idea, kind of keep track of the cycles, kind of figure out how long things take, what works for you. Bottle a few and date them. Then we'll store these at room temperature, let them ferment a few more days, let them build up some gases and become carbonated. However, if they go too long, if there's too much residual sugar in there, they can become explosive. You may want to open them in a Ziploc bag just to be on the safe side, as they can explode. You'll have to clean the ceiling afterwards, or you can open them outside if you're not sure. But once you kind of get a cycle down and figure out how long is too long, how much residual sugar is too much sugar, you kind of get a feel for it and kind of figure out what works for you in your kitchen in your home.